So now we're coming up on the halving.
Yes.
How do you think the halving will impact? Obviously, we've just hit a new all-time high of what it was a couple of days ago, 73,900 or whatever. How do you think the halving will impact not just the price of Bitcoin, but also all of the other things we're talking about? The sovereignty of not just El Salvador, but Bitcoin holders. How will it impact orange pilling more people? Do you think it'll impact more, as you were talking about, Stacy, more Bukele type leaders to emerge? What do you think the halving is going to do?
Well, so far, the previous patterns of the past 4 epochs of Bitcoin have been shattered, right? So we've never hit an all-time new high before the halving. So we've already done that. So I would imagine it will continue to surprise. So we don't know. We don't know. Hopefully markets aren't predictable, right? You can't predict markets, is what Max Keiser will always say. And so, you know, we don't know what's going to happen, but I think we're definitely in a new epoch. Like every epoch, the 4 that existed so far in Bitcoin, you know, they bring in a new crowd. Right at the end of this latest one, we have the ETFs, right? And that's bringing in retail. So they might perhaps define the next 4 years before the next halving. And we don't know what that will bring, what Wall Street will bring to it. But we're about to see, you know, everybody. Okay, so, you know, the previous layer 1 monies we've had in the world are U.S. Treasuries. And we know all the shenanigans, the illusion of that. We don't know how much. It's the audit the Fed. We don't know how much money they have. And then we had gold, and we don't know how much gold exists in Fort Knox. So now we have an audible layer 1 money, perfect global reserve currency type money. And everybody in the world can audit it and know how much is there and who's printing what and how much is being mined. So, you know, a lot of the people who believed in the dollar or believed in gold and still believe in gold, like Peter Schiff this past week was like, yeah, do I wish I had bought some Bitcoin when like Max told me about it at $1 and $10 and $100? Yeah, sure, yeah, of course. But I would have been untrue to myself, right? Because I wouldn't have really believed in it, right? So, yeah. But the people like him that continue to hold on to gold, they always hope that, well, you know, like the controllers of the world, the illusionists, the Wizard of Oz of the global control system, they destroyed the value of gold, right, through all these machinations of holding all the gold, and they get to print paper gold and smash the price of gold and you know, psyops and gaslight people who hold gold and hope to be free and free of the money printing through holding gold. So they're hoping that Wall Street will do the same for Bitcoin. So you know, Max has some theories on that, but I think this will be the epoch. We'll see, like we've reached this point much faster in the whole cycle of, like, it's only 15 years old, Bitcoin, right? So we're already at the point where Wall Street is going to, it's like a head-on fight with Wall Street, whether or not they could actually control the price, the perception, the psychology of participants, the holders of Bitcoin.
Demand shock meets supply shock. So you're going to have those two colliding in a spectacular fireworks of price appreciation. The demand for Bitcoin is already outstripping daily supply by a huge factor, 10 or 20x. That is going to double in another couple of weeks. So the projection is that within 6 months, there won't be any Bitcoin around to buy for ETFs. Not at these prices, and not maybe even at 150 or 200,000. You're going to have to go higher to find any sellers. There's just no sellers. And there will be a time when nobody accepts fiat money at all for Bitcoin. You will not be able to swap your fiat money for Bitcoin. No one will take dollars for Bitcoin. That will be a time that comes soon. And you have one other thing I was going to say about this, the shocks that are coming. But It's
what about the thought that, the hopes, Peter Schiff's one last hope is that Wall Street can do to Bitcoin what it did to gold, that it can psyops and gaslight and destroy the hope of Bitcoiners. Because actually Michael Saylor owns that website, right? Hope.com, and it's all about Bitcoin. So he's hoping, Peter Schiff's one last stand is that Wall Street can destroy all the optimism and hope and the renaissance going on in this part of the world.
Right. Well, Bitcoin is uniquely decentralized and getting more so. Even though the ETFs are not adding to centralization, the underlying node proliferation and et cetera would lead to greater decentralization. Whereas gold is, relative to Bitcoin, very centralized. It is very centralized, and on the bullion banks or who owns the most stockpiles of gold and where gold is mined. So it's compared to Bitcoin, it's very centralized. So it's a lot easier to manipulate, a lot easier to control. But Bitcoin is truly decentralized, and so it's out of anyone's reach, any group of folks, to control it. They can temporarily throw a roadblock in front of it, but like I've also said for many years, that Bitcoin was designed to be attacked, because if you attack it, it just means that the miners and the people throwing computational power at it, their dedication to it goes up, which increases security and therefore increases price. It's designed to be attacked. The more you attack it, the higher the price goes anyway. So it's just. It's going to be, what I was going to say is that the speculative attack is really just now coming into people's consciousness. So George Soros did this back in the early 90s against the Bank of England. He's borrowing money from the Bank of England to attack the Bank of England. And he broke the Bank of England, and he made $1 billion in a week. And it was considered a fantastic financial play. But this is what Michael Saylor is doing right now. He's borrowing at less than 1%, buying Bitcoin that's compounding at 70% a year, right? So you're borrowing at under 1% to buy something that's compounding at 70% a year, and you can keep doing it. There's nothing stopping him. We can just, because the collateral value keeps going up, and he can dilute his shareholders forever. No one's going to stop him from diluting the shares because he's buying Bitcoin with the new money. It makes the shares that they have, even though it's less of a percentage ownership of that company, the value of those shares are going exponentially higher. So you may have had 10% of MicroStrategy worth $1 million, but now you've got 1% of MicroStrategy, but it's worth 20 million because he owns that much more Bitcoin. And now I own 1/10 of 1%, and it's worth 40 million because Bitcoin keeps going up and he keeps collateral. That's the speculative attack. That's what happens. So now El Salvador, I would posit, is doing something similar. And so other companies, other countries are going to be catching on to this, the playbook of MicroStrategy, that as long as you can borrow money and as long as there's fiat money taken for Bitcoin, you can engage in this perpetual motion money machine. And another thing I like to say is Bitcoin has no top because fiat money has no bottom. Priced in fiat money, Bitcoin goes to infinity because all fiat money will be worthless against Bitcoin. Priced in gold, Bitcoin will continue to do very well against gold, but it'll never go to infinity against gold. Gold will always be worth something. Someone will use it as a doorstop or something. Like it'll have some use, whereas fiat money has no use at all. It's just paper. Or, other commodities, certainly against Bitcoin, property markets, you'd be like, I'll buy the island of Manhattan, was sold, it was bought, the legend has it for like $59. Right. That we're going to head back to that. We're heading back to that. It'll be, you can buy the island of Manhattan for the equivalent, of 1 Bitcoin at some point, 59 Bitcoins, because it'll be that much higher and no one will want, look, commercial real estate's already collapsing all over the world in the US. And a lot of that, I would say, has to do with it being demonetized by Bitcoin. The monetary premium of real estate as an investment, as a store of value, is being undermined or demonetized by Bitcoin. So you see people selling their gold ETFs, they're buying Bitcoin ETFs. They're going to be selling their REITs, the real estate investment trusts. They'll be buying Bitcoin. They're going to sell their S&P 500 ETFs, the SPX. They'll be selling those and buying Bitcoin ETFs. So there's a huge changing of the guard, and the money is flowing into Bitcoin. And so this is all, and so the halving, I know what I was going to say. The halving is one of many metrics that one can look at and extrapolate from and draw a conclusion. I would say, for me, I look at sentiment. So right now, the sentiment toward Bitcoin is still fairly lukewarm, as opposed to, let's say, 2017, where every magazine in the world had a cover story about instant billionaires on crypto and Bitcoin. And we're not anywhere near that level of mania yet. When you see stories on ABC, CBS, NBC about this homeless man sold his last, stick of firewood to buy Bitcoin, like those kinds of wacky stories. And so sentiment is at that extreme. That we'll be hitting a cycle peak. The sentiment will be very high, right? But we're not even halfway there yet. We're in the second or third inning of sentiment getting stretched to the point where, those crazy stories, this mother of three sold her baby, buy more Bitcoin or something, that'll be the story. It'll be shocking, but it'll be the height of the, P. Diddy gave up his various habits.
For Bitcoin. Well, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. If Bitcoin fixes it,